It feels so good to be back on the Let's Go show. I think shooting this episode is probably going to be the highlight of my week.
Honestly, I really do love what we get to do here on the show. We laugh, have a good time, but always bring it back to the most important thing, Jesus.
He's the most important thing, so it just makes sense to me that we always bring it back to Jesus. It's safe to say that without him, none of us would be here. He saved us.
Wait, you're right. You saying he saved us reminded me of a story that goes along with today's episode. It's about my sister. You want to hear it?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Not long ago, my sister got into this pretty serious car accident. She was driving on the interstate right after it had rained, so the roads were kind of slick. But she wasn't speeding or anything. But as she came around a big turn, her car slipped and she flipped over multiple times. Like her car actually rolled.
Yikes. I'm assuming she's okay, right?
That's the best part of the story. After her car rolled a couple of times, she was stuck on the side of the interstate by herself and needed someone to come help her. And guess what?
What?
Some really nice people, firefighters, police, and an ambulance came and actually saved her. She was stuck, but after they saved her, she was able to get out of her car and walk away without a single injury.
Wow, thank God. You were right. That story fits perfectly with today's episode. So guys, our main point for today is faith in Jesus saves me. Josh, thanks for sharing that story with us. So let's kick off the episode.
No problem. I hope you guys enjoy the show, and we'll see you back here in just a second.
Hey everyone, my name is Julia, and this is Professor Eric. Today I'm going to be asking him a few questions. Hey Professor Eric, so what makes you a professor?
That's a good question. I went to a lot of school. I had to do the same amount that you're gonna have to do. And then I am finishing another 3.5 years right now.
Oh wow, that is a lot.
Yeah.
Would you rather find a super gross rat in your kitchen or a super slimy cockroach in your bed?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a good one. Definitely the super gross rat in my kitchen. One time, my wife and I were just getting in bed, and I felt a little pitter patter on my back, and I knew what it was.
Oh.
And I flung the covers, and this cockroach goes flying over the course of it. And she's like, ah! And we're both, we're jumping up in our beds, and it was crazy. So I know what that's like. Let's just leave it in the kitchen. If one thing could change about your life today to make it better, what would that thing be?
If I could change one thing in my life, it would be that everybody would know Jesus.
That was such a good answer.
Okay, so since you asked me a deep question, I'm gonna ask you a deep question. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
What does it mean to be saved?
If you need saving, that means you're probably in trouble, right? Mm-hmm. You know, one thing that I think about is the example of you are on a cruise ship, you're having a good time with your family, you fall overboard. It's not gonna go well for you, would it? But actually, the situation is worse. It's worse than the person treading water out there. We're like the dead person in a grave. And in order for you to be saved, well, you don't just have to be pulled out of the ocean. You've already gone under and you're gone. You get pulled out of the ocean and you get brought back to life. That's what Jesus has done for us if we will put our faith in him.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So, in a way, Jesus is bringing us back to life?
Yes.
How do I know if I've sinned?
So, Julia, sin is a word for what it means to disobey God or to run from God.
So, Professor Eric, I get what you're saying, but do you think you have a verse that will help me understand this a little bit more?
I think about Romans chapter 10, where the Apostle Paul, he says that if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus Christ is Lord, then you will be saved.
Whoa. So you're saying that everybody who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.
What's up, crew? We're at the one and only Topgolf Birmingham, and it's gonna be a blast. We're gonna have a little challenge, see who can hit it the furthest, see who can hit it the fastest, and see who can just hit it Okay, it's gonna be awesome. Right here, it's one and only Elijah, one of the competitors. I'm gonna win. He's gonna lose. Let's do it. It's a real top golfer right there. All right, so the game mode is Top Shot. They have to hit it into certain targets. First person to win into all the targets wins the whole game. All right, let's do it. Y'all ready? Do it already? So Elijah just hit every single one of his in except for those two right there. So Elijah is at, where's the main score? Elijah has 11 points.
I told you, athleticism doesn't run into family, but it does for me.
So far I'm -1 and I just hit the first one. Professional disc golf player, but not a professional golfer.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous. All my friends are watching me. I got a little tightness in my lower back, but I think given some time, I'll settle in, I'll get comfortable. Might even have some hot wings.
All right, so we have the top two right here. 87 is the score to beat. Carson, do you think you can do it?
I'm gonna try.
I don't think he can, but Elijah is actually probably the best golfer I've ever seen. So here we go. You guys knock it out of the park, literally.
I'm playing.
That was it. The score to beat was 87. Elijah held it. I was pretty sure he was going to win. The one and only Car Sizzle took it home.
Eat your vegetables.
We love you guys. It was a blast. We'll see you next time.
One day, God told Jonah to go preach to the evil and the injustice going on in the city of Nineveh. It was the capital of the Assyrian Empire, Israel's bitter enemy. But instead of going east to Nineveh, Jonah ran the opposite direction and went to the port to board a ship going the other way. He was hoping to get away from God. As he sailed towards a place called Tarshish, God sent a great and powerful wind over the sea that caused a storm that seemed like it would break the ship apart. Jonah was sound asleep as the sailors feared for their lives and tried to figure out why this was happening. They finally discovered the person behind it all. It was Jonah's fault. So they asked Jonah to explain himself, and he comes to the conclusion that the only way to stop the storm is if the sailors throw him overboard. But even as the sailors threw him overboard, they felt bad, and they asked God for forgiveness. The storm stopped at once. The sailors were amazed at God's power, and unlike Jonah, they worshipped God and vowed to serve him. As Jonah was sinking, God sent a great fish to swallow him up, and Jonah was actually inside the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah prayed to God from inside the fish, and God ordered the fish to spit Jonah out. So once again, God told Jonah to go to the city of Nineveh and preach. This time, Jonah obeyed God and went to Nineveh and delivered God's message. The people of Nineveh repented for the bad things they had done and turned to God. God forgave the Ninevites and didn't bring any destruction to the city. Now, here's the amazing part of the story. The last chapter of the book brings all the pieces together. Jonah is angry. I mean, fuming mad. He first told God why he ran away. It wasn't because he was afraid, it was that he knew how God would respond. I knew that you are a God who is kind and shows mercy. I knew you would rather forgive the Ninevites than punish them. That's right, he was mad that God saved them. They were Israel's enemies. They deserved to be punished. He was so frustrated that he told God he would rather die than see his enemies happy. Fortunately for Jonah, God didn't get rid of them. He simply asked, "Is it right for you to be angry?" He ignored the question and went outside the city wall to camp at a nearby hill. What happens next is kind of odd. God provides a plant that grows to give Jonah shade from the sun. That makes Jonah quite happy. But then God sends a tiny worm to eat up the plant, so Jonah loses his shade. There in the scorching heat of the sun, Jonah says again, "It would be better for me to die than to live." To which God answers again by asking him, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" Jonah barks back, "Absolutely it is, and I'm so angry I wish I were dead." This is the last we heard of Jonah. God tried to get through to him. He tried to show him that people are more valuable than a plant. Yet Jonah was mad that the plant withered while God had shown concern for the people of Nineveh. And that's how the book ends. Here we see how loving and how compassionate God really is by forgiving a people that may have deserved his punishment. On the other hand, we see a hypocritical Jonah who was selfish and mostly disobeyed God. What this story is trying to do is ask those questions directly to you. Are you okay that God loves your enemy? Are you okay that God does things that may not always make sense to you? Will you obey and trust God's plan anyway?
As we wrap up today's episode on the Let's Go show, I think it's important we go over everything one more time so we can be sure that we got as much out of today's episodes that we could. How does that sound?
I think that's super smart. I know I could use a refresher before we hop off the show.
It all started with our main point, which was faith in Jesus saves me. I shared a story of how my sister got into a car accident and was saved by those nice firefighters, police, and the ambulance.
And then we learned what it means to be saved, because sometimes that idea can be a hard thing to understand. Do you remember what it means when we say that Jesus saved us?
I do. It means that God sent his son Jesus to die for us and forgive us for the times that we disobey God. Since Jesus was so kind and obeyed God by dying in our place, we are saved from having to pay the price for disobeying God. Jesus' perfect sacrifice means that we're saved from the punishment of our sin.
So, God asked Jonah to go to a place called Nineveh and preach to the people about God. Sadly, Jonah chose to disobey God and found himself thrown over the side of a boat in the middle of a really bad storm.
Weird question, but do you think Jonah knew how to swim?
I don't know. But it doesn't really matter because God saved Jonah from drowning and sending big fish to swallow him. Then Jonah came to his senses and told God that he was sorry and would do whatever he asked him to do. So once Jonah had a change of heart, God got him out of the fish's belly and Jonah went to Nineveh. Once Jonah made it to Nineveh, a city full of really bad people, he told the people to repent and turn to God because God wanted to save them.
Do you guys see how all of these things tied together? God saved Jonah from drowning in the storm and then wanted to save the people of Nineveh. That's what Jesus did for us. He saved us. Now, instead of having to pay the price for disobeying God, like Jonah almost had to before he was swallowed by the fish, we can be saved through the love of Jesus.
The only way that we can truly be saved is by putting our faith in Jesus and what he did for us on the cross. Jesus was the perfect sacrifice, and now it makes it possible for us to be forgiven and have a real relationship with God. Without putting our faith in Jesus, there is no way for us to be saved. It's just not possible, regardless of how good we try to be. Our good grades, our friends, how good we are at sports, none of that can save us from our sin.
But when we let Jesus be the king of our lives and give our hearts to him, we can know that we're saved. I said it once, but I'll say it again. Faith in Jesus saves us.
Today's episode was something special and has me feeling really thankful that I've chosen to put my faith in Jesus and let him save me.
We hope you guys were able to learn a whole lot about how Jesus saves us. Remember, always put your faith in Jesus because he is a good God and loves us so much.
We can't wait to hang out with you guys again soon, so take it easy and we'll see you next time.